Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of How Is It? Today, we'll be covering House of the Dragons and my first impression of the show. The first episode aired a couple days ago, and I got a chance to watch it a couple times. And I was really, really worried about this show. To be honest, I was burned a little bit by the end of Game of Thrones. I didn't hate it as much as most people did. I thought it was just okay. And for a series that was up there in my top five for the best shows I've watched. To have an ending like that fell really flat and it was really, really rushed. I think that was the bigger problem was how rushed it was. I did not have a lot of expectations for House of the Dragon. I was thinking they're just trying to do more Game of Thrones for money, but luckily I was surprised. So I'm gonna get to my first impressions here. So to kick it off, this show takes place 172 years before Daenerys Targaryen is even born. So they left themselves a good gap here. We all know where this eventually goes. We've all seen Game of Thrones, and if you haven't, I'd seriously recommend it despite how the ending turned out. They leave themselves a gap here that allows them to do creative things and introduce new characters and do unexpected things, which I'm very happy about. I didn't want it to be like a 20 or 30 years beforehand, just because that doesn't leave you a whole lot of time. You know where the show has to go. Even if this show goes for 7 or 8 seasons, I don't think we're going to get up to Robert's Rebellion or anything like that. I think we're still going to have a nice cushion. So nothing here is set in stone. But one thing that is great about this show is it feels Game of Thrones still. You have some of the houses from the original, and the feel of the show kind of feels like a season 2 through 4 episode of Game of Thrones, kind of like in the best seasons of it for me. I think they have done a really good job of capturing Game of Thrones, giving us a new story, but it feels like 7 and 8 didn't happen. Season 7, 8 were completely wiped out, and we're back in that heyday of Game of Thrones, which I'm so happy about. I haven't been this pleased with this episode of a show in a long time. But with all this excitement, we still have to keep in mind this is Game of Thrones. We've been burnt by endings, and things could go downhill. But purely based off this first episode, I couldn't be a whole lot happier. Again, expectations don't want to get them too high because it's going to be really hard to capture Game of Thrones again. But this is a very positive start, a very, very positive start. There's interesting characters. I really like Damon's character. Matt Smith's doing a great job with that one. There's a lot of interesting things that are happening already. And for a first episode, I didn't expect to get as much as we did. It was an hour and 14 minutes. But as a Game of Thrones fan, someone who really wanted more, I'm glad we're getting actual Game of Thrones and not just another series just to have one. Again, very excited. Clearly, very excited. But I'm staying cautious. But anyone who has been worried about the show or not going to try it out and they liked Game of Thrones, I would definitely at least give it a shot. I would say, how is it? It's pretty good. It's really good so far. But again, one episode. This is first impressions. The first impression was great. I hope they don't ruin it. I really hope they don't ruin it because there's a lot of potential here. As something we've seen in the trailers, no spoilers here, we've seen multiple like adult giant dragons already. We've seen a tournament. We've seen princes and princesses in the whole Game of Thrones. Like everything's kicking off in the first episode. They didn't waste time. They didn't kind of play it safe, and I really like that. And I'm really glad to see what happened before Game of Thrones in a way I didn't expect to care, but I'm really happy that it's interesting, and I really recommend giving it a shot. Thank you for joining me for the first episode of How Is It? My early impressions of House of the Dragon, a Game of Thrones Smith-off. Be sure to come back for my full review of Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon Season 1 when they are up. Thank you. Have a good one.